Greetings to each of you in this time of Lent. Last Wednesday, on Ash Wednesday, we transitioned to a new season in the liturgical year, a season of 40 days that ends on April 9 with the joyful celebration of Easter. Some of us mark the change of season with donuts on Fastnacht Day. Freely, the donuts were given to each of us to enjoy just before the start of Lent. I need to confess that I, in my growing up, was more appreciative of Fastnacht than I was to Ash Wednesday. But in recent years, the season of Lent has taken on new meaning for me. The Gospel of Luke marks what we call Lent with these words in chapter 9, verse 51. When the days drew near for Jesus to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And the rest of the book of Luke describes the journey of Jesus going to Jerusalem, where he knew his earthly journey would come to an end. In Holy Week, we remember and observe the final conflicts of Jesus with Jewish leaders who handed him over to the Roman leader Pilate, after which he was crucified. Lent is a season when we observe what Jesus said and did in his final journey from what I read in Luke 9 toward Jesus' death. So after the feasting of Fastnacht and the carnival atmosphere of Mardi Gras comes the somber spirit of Lent. Purple is the color for Lent, signifying the pathos of suffering and death. The ashes that some of us had placed on our forehead last Wednesday reminded us that we came from dust and someday will return to dust. In other words, just as Jesus journeyed to Jerusalem, where he knew his earthly ministry would cultivate in death and eventually the resurrection, we too are invited to remember that our life journey on this earth will at some time come to an end, and we also will transition through the resurrection of Jesus into our eternal destiny. How do we live with this reminder that we are dust, and to dust we will return? One reality of living in this community is that death never seems very far from us. Each week it seems some people make this transition. We can't ignore death even if we wish to. In recent months, I have been very cognizant of death as I helped to distribute the ashes of my sister-in-law Alice in a memorial garden, and then 6 weeks later threw a handful of dirt into the grave of my brother Sam, where an urn with his ashes was placed. I am sure some of you can identify with similar experiences for family members and friends. So we ask, how could Jesus so boldly and intentionally set his face toward Jerusalem, knowing what awaited him there? I want to observe just two things this morning, out of many that could be said, in the experience of Jesus from which we can learn. One observation is that Jesus invited the disciples to join him on his trek to Jerusalem. He did not go alone. He had 12 friends he chose to walk with him. He needed companions on this journey toward his death. From time to time, he would speak with the disciples about what he anticipated his end would be in Jerusalem. They never seemed to fully comprehend what he was trying to tell them, but he modeled a sense of community as he took this journey to death and resurrection. The other day, some of us were commenting about an imminent death of a resident, and a friend said, "It's hard to be alone when facing the prospect of leaving this earthly life." And I agree. What a gift it is to not be alone when facing big life challenges. I often hear that Landis Homes described as a community. Some of us chose to live here precisely for the communal character of this place. One of the precious aspects of living at Landis Homes for me is that I experience here a sense of belonging with some peers and friends. Now, of course, I have friends in other places as well. When I was in high school, a few of us became good friends, and since then we've scattered to many places, one now in New Brunswick, Canada, another in Virginia, another one in Indiana. But somehow we've stayed in touch over these more than 65 years and find a spiritual and a friendship connection that is very real. The point of the journey of life and death is enhanced with love and peace when we're not alone. This is a gift for which many of us need to give thanks to God. It's also an opportunity for many of us to reach out to those who feel alone and need a community to journey with them. Can we be sensitive and offer friendship and love to those who feel alone? The journey of Lent is enriched by relationships. Might we reach beyond those like us to those who are different and feel alone in this community, especially in times of special challenge? Now, the other observation from the story of Jesus is that moving toward death pressed him into deeper connections with God. The 12 disciples were not enough. He went off alone at times to pray. The disciples proved not to be a reliable support for him in the face of negative forces that were certainly almost going to be overwhelming. There are aspects of facing death that no one else can fully participate in. Only God can be our companion at this time. Moving toward death presses us to discover a deeper life of faith in God that carries us from this earthly life to the deeper life of faith in God for the eternal state that we will move into. We discover through God that we're able to make that journey. Many of us have been followers of Jesus for years. Our faith and trust in Jesus has been an important dimension of life. But facing death pushes us into a new level of faith and trust in God. Finally, like Jesus, our friends can't carry us to the other shore. There we need a new step of faith that dares us to trust God to be there for us and to accompany us on this transition to the life to come. It's not uncommon to have fears about death. Death has its own mystery without clear, pat answers. Cultivating a relationship with God throughout our lives provides a foundation for trust in God in this final stage of the journey. Perhaps this Lenten season can be a time for staying in touch and giving thanks for the people who have been important to us throughout the years, the kind of people we'll count on even as we face death. Perhaps it also can be a time of confronting our fragile trust in God for the next stage of the journey and reaffirming our faith for the days to come. The purple of Lent need not signal fear and despair, but an invitation to trust and to deepen our faith. In a moment, Janet is going to play a familiar African-American song, a personal prayer as we face the uncertainties of life and death. Pray with me now these words from this song as our concluding prayer for this devotional. Will you join me? Just a closer walk with thee, granted, Jesus, is my plea. Daily walking close to thee, let it be, dear Lord, let it be. I am weak, but thou art strong. Jesus, keep me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied as long as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. Through this whirl of toil and snares, if I falter, Lord, who cares? Who with me my burden shares? None but thee, dear Lord, none but thee. When my feeble life is o'er, time for me will be no more. Guide me gently, safely, o'er to thy kingdom shore, to thy shore. So let it be, dear Lord, for each of us. Amen.